Brexit is a bit like playing pass the parcel, that you pass it round and unwrap different layers, and at every layer you get a surprise. Last week, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, went on to Sunday Morning with Trevor Phillips, and he was asked about Brexit, and he more or less said that it's happened, he didn't want it, he didn't vote for it, he conceded it's hugely damaging, but we just have to get on with it, he said, and just ignore it, and just learn to live with it. A bit like learning to live with leprosy.
There's one market over here, there's another market over here. There's one way to ensure this, smoother trade and simpler processes, maybe having one market. I'm struggling to think of the word. Can you help me?
Yeah, I know, but and I campaign passionately to remain in the European Union, but a referendum and 2 subsequent general elections settled that question.
But this isn't about remaining in the European Union. There'll be some people genuinely who are thinking, why can't there be, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong here, but why can't there be an open debate about the single market, about the customs union, without this government trying to shut it down?
Well, the debate has been taking place non-stop in the run-up to and since the referendum.
But it doesn't feel like it is now, though, does it?
Well, because I think people have moved. I think people have moved on. The country's moved on. The EU's moved on. And let me tell you, not just here but in Brussels, there is no appetite to relitigate those arguments, to reopen things that have been settled. Actually, it's about a new...
Even if the damage is grave.
It's about a new friendship.
Your own Green Paper says investment is reduced by 11% because of Brexit.
There's no doubt that what we warned about in advance of the referendum in terms of the impact on economic growth has come to pass, and that's a fact of life we have to deal with. I think the sweet spot is working as closely with the European Union where we can, but also showing the agility to work with and through partners in other markets as well. And there is that sweet spot there to unlock, and that will be the agile way in which we work.
You're here because you want to talk about a deal that you struck with the world's largest pharmaceutical company. The boss of that company, David Ricks, made the Brexit point on Radio 4 today. He said the difference in the UK on your own now, separate from Europe, is a relatively small market.
And there was another business leader who approached me today to say, look, and this is their continental base, but they said, look, there are a couple of EU regulations that are making life harder for us. They don't apply in the UK. Can we have a conversation? So I think there are some of those opportunities that also open up. The great thing for me about today's summit wasn't just the £63 billion that's been unlocked, the tens of thousands of jobs that will be created in every part of the country. It's also exactly these sorts of conversations where people, particularly not just brilliant business leaders here in Britain, but those from around the world, are coming in and giving their worldview on where Britain sits, the opportunities we can make the most of, and how we can work together with business. And I was on the panel with Dave Ricks today looking at life sciences, data, and there was that constructive challenge and friendly advice that comes from being good partners and good friends. So I'm confident off the back of today, not only will we see the investments come to fruition that we've, in terms of the deals we've signed today and the impact that's going to have, I think there'll be new partnerships, new deals being struck over the coming years that will really put rocket boosters under growth in our country. And that's so important because when we get to the budget and the Chancellor's got difficult choices to make around tax and spending, we should not forget that those choices would not be so hard if Britain's economy was growing to the extent that it did under the last Labour government and to the extent that we've seen around the world. So I think there's real opportunities for growth, which is putting money back into people's pockets and investing in our public services using the proceeds of growth. That's why it matters.
But since he said that, there's been lots of things that have happened with Brexit this week. First of all, Lord Mayor, the mayor of the city, say that Brexit actually was far more damaging than anticipated and has lost 40,000 jobs to the City of London. Then also the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, came out and said...
I'm quite clear that, all successful countries do the most trade with their nearest neighbours. It's one of the signs of success. We've got on our doorstep not just friends and colleagues and family indeed. We've got a market of more than 500 million people. The good news is the Prime Minister spent a lot of the last 3 months visiting friends in Europe, whether it's the President of France, the Prime Minister of Italy, the Chancellor of Germany, or the European Union indeed in Brussels. The current Brexit deal we have comes up for review next year. I'm hoping, unlike last time, there'll be closer alignment rather than divergence. We should be looking at a whole host of issues and talking about them, whether it's a youth mobility scheme, whether it's seeing what we can do to bring people closer together and stuff. I think the reality is, in the short term, we probably aren't going to get back as members of the single market, but it's something we shouldn't be scared to talk about.
Particularly the financial services industry, very keen on closer alignment with Europe. And what can you offer there?
Well, what I'd say to our friends in Europe is, in a respectful way, London is the global city in Europe. Our competitors, I say in a respectful way, are Singapore, Hong Kong, New York. And I want to work with our European neighbours, and this government wants to work with our European neighbours to keep that investment, those jobs in Europe, and that means in London. We also want to have close alignment with the European Union, and I think what you'll see from the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, the Business Secretary and many others in the Cabinet is reaching out the hand of friendship with our European partners. In fact, David Lammy today is in mainland Europe having those conversations with friends in Europe. It's really important that we understand it's in both of our interests, the European Union and the UK, to have that closer alignment.
Then we had a new report from UK and a Changing Europe, which identified that there is another Brexit black hole of 44 billion because of the loss of investment from the European Bank, and that has not been replaced by any measure by the new UK Investment Bank. And we can measure this by what France has been getting since we stopped receiving investment from the European Investment Bank. And on it goes. But then this morning in the Times, there's an article which says that as we're approaching the American election and the horror of Trump winning again, they concede that a Trump win is going to be even worse than Brexit. And that is because of his America First regime and his potential trade war with China. That it is quite extraordinary that finally the Times is admitting that Brexit is a seismic, negative, damaging event. But the fact that they also say that we are facing something which is even worse with Trump is extraordinary again, because Brexit was sold as something which was going to be yippity-doo-dah, amazing, everything was going to be cheaper, we were going to have less immigration, and we were going to have this fantastic McGorrickle trade deal with America. Now we've got Brexit, immigration has quadrupled, and the food is more expensive, by a country mile. And yes, they've got other things to blame for that and say everyone else has got inflation, but we've got the worst inflation and the worst damage to our own domestic food production. But they're now saying that this whole thing of being free and on our own actually isn't such a great thing, because Trump is going to make life a lot worse. And Biden has been hugely protectorate as well. So Brexit is a failure for sure. With a Trump nightmare coming our way like a tsunami, we need to work fast to protect this country. And being out on our own is not going to be good for us. And it's there in black and white in the Times today. It says exactly that.
It's all about immigration, right? It's not about trade or Europe or anything like that. It's all about immigration. It's to stop the Muslims from coming into this country. Simple as that.
Do you think you voted to leave the EU to stop Muslims coming to the country?
To stop immigration.
Right.
But the movement of people in Europe, fair enough. But not from Africa, Syria, Iraq, everywhere else. It's all wrong.
My parents, my grandparents fought for England to be free, and it's about time we would come back to be free.
What does it feel like then?
Great. It feels lovely. So I'm very pleased.
You got a little tear in your eye almost there. Does it mean that much?
It does, yes.
I dislike the idea of foreign officials telling this country what to do, like the Junkers, the Van Rompuys, Donald Tusk. They're not elected, they're responsible to no one, we can't kick them out if they do wrong. And the sheer waste of the European Union spending taxpayers' money. They've just spent 13 million on art of taxpayers' money. That says it all, doesn't it?
I'm so happy because I'm very proud to be British and it just makes me feel very patriotic. Yes, and I think it's put England on the globe back again and I feel very proud.
Do comment below, let me know what you think. If you haven't subscribed, do subscribe and hit the notification button so that you know every time I post a video.